When the stakes are high, whether we're talking about corporate security or even space exploration, we rely on risk assessment, right? But what if the very process we put all our trust in is actually built on a dangerous assumption? Let's dig in and see why our standard approach might just be the biggest risk of them all. Wow. Okay, so security and risk management expert Tony Ridley is not pulling any punches here. Fundamentally flawed, misleading, and dangerous. That's a pretty heavy charge to level against a practice that's used every single day in critical industries. So what exactly is he getting at? All right, so the whole problem really starts with what our source material calls a dangerous assumption. And this is the core idea that we need to challenge first. So this is the traditional way of doing things, risk-based decision-making. You can think of it like taking a photograph. It's a single static snapshot in time, and it's treated as the final, absolute, unchangeable truth on the matter. And here is the major, critical flaw. This whole model is quietly built on the assumption that our understanding of the risk is perfect. It assumes our analysis is totally complete, totally flawless. Something the source points out is, quote, universally unlikely or untrue in our messy, always changing world. So, if that old model is so brittle and flawed, what's a more resilient way forward? Well, that brings us to Section 2, and a much smarter approach, the informed alternative. Just look at the words on this slide. Instead of finality, this risk-informed approach uses words like provisional, transient, and subject to change. It starts from a really simple truth. Our knowledge is never perfect, and new information is always just around the corner.
And look, this isn't just some philosophical shift in thinking, it's intensely practical. A risk-informed approach is reflexive, which means it's designed to react and adapt as new data comes in. And it's iterative, so it's a continuous cycle of learning and adjusting. Basically, it's a system built for the messy reality we all actually live in, not some perfect, sterile lab.
Now, to really make the contrast here crystal clear, let's put these two philosophies side by side. Welcome to Section 3, static versus dynamic thinking.
This comparison really just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? On the left, you've got risk-based thinking. It's static, it starts by assuming perfection, and it often ends up just defending old conclusions, sometimes way after they've become irrelevant. But on the right, risk-informed thinking is dynamic. It knows that change is the only constant, and it assumes that constant revision is not just a good idea, it's necessary. It's less like an accountant's final ledger and a lot more like the scientific method, always open to being updated with new evidence.
So, what does this more dynamic, more flexible method actually look like when you put it into practice? Let's jump into Section 4 and see this process in action. Okay, this flowchart might look a little intense at first glance, but it's a really robust process for making these better, high-stakes decisions. And this isn't just some theory. It's adapted from frameworks used by some really demanding organizations, like the International Atomic Energy Agency and even NASA. So let's walk through it. First things first, the process always starts with the key inputs. So instead of just looking at a problem in a vacuum, you are intentionally bringing in all the surrounding context. Yeah, you define the main issue, but you also factor in all the rules, the practical business needs, and you lay out all your potential options right there from the very beginning. Now we move into the analysis hub, which is really the powerhouse of this whole model. Here, a decision isn't based on just a single number. Nope, it's informed by a whole range of different analyses. You're looking at the hard and fast rules and safety margins, but you're also looking at the probabilities, the likelihood of different things happening. And then you layer in things like organizational factors, security threats, economic impacts. It's kind of like building a mosaic. Every single piece of analysis helps you see a much richer, more complete picture. And this is what makes it a living, dynamic process. After you evaluate your options, make a decision, and implement it, you don't just walk away. You continuously monitor the performance, and based on what you see happening in the real world, you take corrective actions. That information then feeds right back into your understanding of the issue. It's this fantastic feedback loop that acts like a thermostat, constantly sensing the environment and making little adjustments to stay on course. Okay, so let's bring all of this home. Our final section turns these big concepts into 3 powerful, actionable questions for any of us who find ourselves in a decision-making role. This first question, it cuts right to your core mindset. So think about it. Are you more committed to defending a past decision, the outcome, or are you truly dedicated to the process of getting it right, even if that means admitting a past decision needs to change? Now, let's think about your data. Are the choices you're making being driven by fresh, current information, or Are you and maybe your organization kind of running on autopilot, relying on a risk rating or some number that was calculated months or maybe even years ago? In this final question, it really captures the whole spirit of being risk-informed. Are you actively pulling in new intelligence, maintaining real-time situational awareness, and scanning the horizon for what might be coming next? Or is your decision-making process kind of walled off from the world? At the end of the day, it's the difference between navigating with a live GPS versus an old folded paper map. And in any high-stakes situation, that difference is everything.